The morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky terrain of the Afghan mountains as Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison adjusted his position behind the boulder. His SEAL team had been tracking a high-value target for 3 days, and intelligence suggested their mark would appear at the compound below within the hour.
Overwatch, this is Alpha 1. Do you have eyes on the target zone?
Jake whispered into his calm unit, his voice barely audible even to himself.
Alpha 1, this is Overwatch. Negative on primary target. Multiple hostiles moving around the compound.
Count 7 tangos in the courtyard, came the crisp reply from somewhere in the hills above them. Jake had been leading SEAL operations for 8 years, but something felt different about this mission. The intelligence was too clean, too perfect. In his experience, when things seemed too easy in Afghanistan, they usually were. His team of 6 operators lay spread across the rocky outcropping, each man a specialist in his own right. Petty Officer First Class Rodriguez handled communications, while Chief Petty Officer Williams managed demolitions. The others, Martinez, Thompson, and Baker, were riflemen who could hit a target at 800 meters without breaking a sweat.
Movement at 2 o'clock, Rodriguez reported quietly. 3 vehicles approaching from the east.
Jake raised his binoculars and studied the approaching convoy. 2 pickup trucks and what looked like a small SUV, kicking up dust clouds as they navigated the rough mountain road.
This wasn't part of the briefing. Overwatch, are you tracking the new vehicles? Affirmative, Alpha 1. Appears to be unscheduled arrival. Continue to observe.
The vehicles pulled into the compound, and Jake watched as armed men emerged from each one. His count was now up to 15 hostiles, more than double what intelligence had predicted. The mission parameters were changing rapidly.
Alpha 1, this is Control, crackled through his earpiece. Primary target has been identified entering the main building.
You are cleared to engage when ready. Jake studied the compound through his scope. The building was a 2-story structure made of mud brick and concrete, typical of the region. Windows were small and few, making it difficult to get a clear view inside. The hostiles in the courtyard had taken defensive positions, suggesting they might be expecting trouble.
Something's not right here, Chief Williams whispered, crawling up beside Jake. This feels like a setup. Jake had been thinking the same thing. The timing was too convenient, the target too exposed.
In 12 years of military service, he had learned to trust his instincts, and right now they were screaming danger.
Overwatch, can you confirm target identification? Need visual confirmation before we proceed.
There was a pause before the response came. Alpha 1, target confirmed through thermal imaging. Adult male, matching description and heat signature profile.
Jake wasn't satisfied.
Heat signatures could be misleading, and positive identification required more than thermal readings. But Control was pushing for immediate action, and his orders were clear.
Alpha Team, prepare for assault. We go in 2 minutes.
Rodriguez, kill the power to the compound. Williams, prepare charges for the south wall.
Everyone else, standard room clearing protocols.
As his team moved into position, Jake continued studying the compound. The hostiles were too calm, too organized. Professional soldiers knew how to read the battlefield, and these men weren't showing the nervous energy of typical insurgents.
Power's down, Rodriguez reported. Compound is dark.
Williams, you're clear for breach. The explosion echoed through the valley as the south wall of the compound crumbled.
Jake's team moved like water flowing downhill, each man knowing his role without needing direction.
They had trained together for 3 years, and their movements were synchronized with deadly precision.
Building secured.
Moving to second floor, Martinez reported as they cleared the ground level. Jake was the 3rd man through the breach, his rifle raised and ready. The compound was eerily quiet after the explosion, with only the sound of their boots on concrete and the distant echo of the blast rolling through the mountains.
Stairwell clear. Second floor, room by room, Jake directed.
They moved up the narrow staircase, weapons trained on every shadow and corner. The second floor had 4 rooms, and they would clear each one systematically.
This was where their training took over, muscle memory guiding their actions. First room clear. Second room clear. Third room. Thompson's voice stopped mid-sentence.
Jake moved to Thompson's position and peered into the room. A figure sat in the corner, hands visible and non-threatening.
But something was wrong.
The person was too small, too slight to match the target profile.
Control, this is Alpha 1. We have a problem. Target does not match description. Alpha 1, proceed with mission parameters. Target is confirmed.
Jake studied the figure in the room more carefully. Even in the dim light, he could see this was not their target.
The build was wrong, the height was wrong, everything was wrong.
Williams, Thompson, secure the individual.
Martinez, check the fourth room.
Rodriguez, establish perimeter watch. As Thompson moved to secure the figure, Jake heard something that made his blood run cold. A woman's voice, speaking perfect English with no trace of an accent.
Lieutenant Commander Morrison, I've been waiting for you.
Jake's rifle was instantly trained on the figure as Williams illuminated the room with his tactical light. Sitting calmly in the corner was a woman in military fatigues, her hands clearly visible and empty. She appeared to be in her early 30s, with sharp features and steady eyes that showed no fear despite having 6 Navy SEALs pointing weapons at her.
Who are you? Jake demanded, his finger resting on the trigger guard.
Captain Sarah Chen, United States Army Intelligence, she replied calmly.
And, we need to talk. Jake's mind raced. Army intelligence officers didn't just appear in enemy compounds in Afghanistan.
This was either an incredibly deep cover operation or something had gone very wrong with their mission.
Proof, Jake said simply.
The woman slowly reached into her chest pocket and pulled out a military identification card. Thompson took it and examined it carefully before nodding to Jake.
It's legitimate, sir. Army Captain, Intelligence Branch. Control, this is Alpha 1. We have a situation. Target location contains Army Intelligence Officer. Request immediate clarification of mission parameters.
The radio crackled with static before Control responded.
Alpha 1, continue with original mission. Secure the building and await extraction. Jake didn't like the delay in response or the vague orders.
Something was very wrong, and his team was potentially in danger.
Captain Chen, what are you doing here?
I'm here because someone in your chain of command is not who they appear to be. This mission is compromised, and your team is walking into a trap. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. Compromised missions meant dead operators, and he wasn't about to lose his men to bad intelligence or enemy infiltration.
Explain. Now.
Captain Chen stood slowly, keeping her hands visible. 3 days ago, Army intelligence intercepted communications indicating that a Navy SEAL team would be sent to eliminate a high-value target at these coordinates. The problem is, there is no high-value target here. This compound has been empty for 2 months. Jake felt the pieces of a puzzle starting to come together, but the picture they formed was terrifying. If Chen was telling the truth, then someone had deliberately sent his team into a trap.
Who sent you here? General Patricia Hammond, Army Intelligence. She's been tracking unusual SEAL deployments for the past 6 months.
Someone has been using Navy Special Operations for unauthorized missions. The name meant nothing to Jake, but the implications were enormous. Unauthorized use of Special Operations Forces was a court-martial offense at minimum, and could constitute treason depending on the circumstances.
Rodriguez, how's our perimeter?
All quiet, sir.
No movement detected. Jake made a decision that would change everything.
Instead of following his orders blindly, he was going to listen to what this Army intelligence officer had to say.
Talk. But, make it fast.
Captain Chen moved to the window and pointed toward the hills where Overwatch was positioned. Your sniper is not who Control thinks they are. The person providing Overwatch for this mission is not a Navy asset. Jake's blood ran cold. Overwatch had been coordinating their movements, calling out targets, and providing tactical information. If the sniper wasn't one of theirs, then every piece of information they had received was suspect.
Who is it?
We believe it's a foreign operative, possibly Russian or Chinese, using this mission to gather intelligence on SEAL tactics and procedures. Every move your team has made has been observed and recorded.
The implications were staggering.
Not only was his team in immediate danger, but their operational security had been completely compromised. Every technique, every procedure, every piece of equipment they used could potentially be turned against other SEAL teams in the future.
Control, this is Alpha 1. Request immediate extraction for entire team. Alpha 1 negative on extraction. Complete mission objectives and proceed to secondary extraction point. Jake's suspicions were confirmed. A legitimate command structure would want to know why he was requesting emergency extraction.
The fact that Control was pushing him to continue the mission despite his concerns proved that something was very wrong. Williams, prep charges on all entrances.
We're leaving this building, but we're doing it our way. Copy that, sir. Jake turned back to Captain Chen.
If what you're saying is true, then we're all in immediate danger.
That sniper has been tracking our every move. Not just tracking. They've been waiting for the perfect moment to eliminate your entire team.
This mission was designed to look like a Taliban ambush, but it's actually an assassination attempt disguised as a combat operation. The pieces were falling into place now. The perfect intelligence, the convenient target, the isolated location, it was all designed to get his team into a position where they could be eliminated without raising suspicions.
Rodriguez, can you reach anyone outside our immediate command structure? Negative, sir.
All communications are being routed through Control. I can't break out of the network without special authorization codes.
Jake realized they were completely cut off from legitimate command authority.
Whoever was running this operation had thought of everything.
Captain Chen, what do you recommend?
We need to neutralize that sniper and get to a location where we can contact General Hammond directly. She has assets in the area that can provide extraction, but we need to reach them first.
Jake looked at his team.
These men had followed him through dozens of missions, trusting his judgment and leadership. Now he was asking them to essentially go rogue, disobeying direct orders based on the word of an Army intelligence officer they had just met.
Gentlemen, I need you to understand something. We may not be on a legitimate mission.
We may be walking into a trap designed to eliminate our entire team.
I'm giving you a choice.
We can follow orders and hope for the best, or we can take control of our own situation. Chief Williams was the first to respond.
Sir, I've been doing this for 15 years. My gut has been telling me something was wrong since we inserted. I'm with you.
One by one, each team member voiced their support. Rodriguez, Martinez, Thompson, and Baker, they were all willing to trust Jake's judgment over questionable orders from Control.
All right then. New mission parameters.
We neutralize the threat, protect Captain Chen, and get to a secure location where we can contact legitimate command authority. Jake moved back to the window and studied the hills where their supposed overwatch was positioned. Somewhere up there was a sniper who had been watching their every move, waiting for the right moment to eliminate them all.
Captain Chen, do you have any intelligence on the sniper's exact position?
My team tracked them to a ridge approximately 800 meters northeast of this compound. Single shooter, likely using a high-powered rifle with advanced optics. Jake calculated angles and distances in his head. 800 meters was well within the range of a skilled sniper, and their current position offered minimal cover. They needed to move, and they needed to move smart.
Williams, how long before those charges are ready?
2 minutes, sir.
Rodriguez, monitor all frequencies.
If anyone else is operating in this area, I want to know about it.
Copy that, sir. Jake turned to Captain Chen. When we move out of here, we're going to be exposed. Are you prepared for combat?
Captain Chen reached behind her back and produced a sidearm.
Army intelligence officers receive the same combat training as infantry. I can handle myself. Jake nodded, impressed despite the circumstances.
Army intelligence officers were usually desk analysts, but this one seemed ready for field operations. Martinez, Thompson, you're going to provide covering fire while we move to the secondary position.
Baker, you're with me and Captain Chen.
We're going to work our way around to that sniper position.
Sir, Thompson interrupted, shouldn't we try to make contact with the sniper first? Maybe they don't know the situation is compromised. Jake had considered that option, but dismissed it quickly. If Captain Chen is right, then that sniper is enemy. Any communication attempt will just confirm our location and give them a clear shot.
The sound of distant gunfire suddenly echoed through the valley. Jake moved quickly to the window and scanned the horizon with his binoculars.
Movement to the south. Looks like vehicles approaching at high speed. Rodriguez checked his equipment. I'm picking up radio chatter on Taliban frequencies. Sounds like they're responding to our explosion.
The situation was deteriorating rapidly. Not only did they have a potentially hostile sniper in the hills, but now Taliban forces were converging on their location.
Williams, those charges ready?
30 seconds, sir. Jake made rapid calculations. They needed to move before the Taliban arrived, but they also needed to avoid exposing themselves to the sniper. It was a tactical nightmare with no good options.
Change of plans. We're going to use the Taliban as cover. When they engage with the sniper, we move.
Captain Chan looked surprised.
You want to use enemy forces as a distraction?
Sometimes the enemy of my enemy is my friend, even if it's temporary. The sound of gunfire intensified as Taliban vehicles reached the compound perimeter.
Jake could see muzzle flashes in the hills where the sniper was positioned. Now! Williams, blow the charges.
The explosion rocked the building as Williams detonated the charges on the north wall. Jake's team moved through the breach like a well-oiled machine, using the confusion and smoke as cover.
Baker, Chen, with me. Everyone else, bounding over watch to the ridgeline.
They moved across the rocky terrain in short rushes, using every piece of cover available. The sound of gunfire continued from the compound as Taliban forces engaged with the sniper position. Jake could hear rounds snapping overhead as they advanced toward the sniper's position. Whoever was up there was skilled, maintaining fire discipline and picking targets carefully despite being outnumbered.
Rodriguez, are you getting anything on military frequencies?
Negative, sir.
Still locked out of the network.
They reached a position about 400 meters from the sniper's ridge. Jake could see muzzle flashes and the occasional glint of optics through his binoculars.
Captain Shen, your people know we're coming?
General Hammond has assets monitoring the situation. They should be aware of our movement.
Jake hoped she was right.
The last thing they needed was to walk into a crossfire between unknown friendly forces and a hostile sniper.
Martinez, can you get a clear shot from here? Martinez studied the ridge through his scope.
Negative, sir.
Too much cover. We need to get closer.
Jake looked at the terrain between their position and the sniper's ridge. It was mostly open ground with minimal cover, a kill zone for anyone skilled with a rifle.
All right, we do this the hard way.
Williams, Thompson, you're going to provide suppressive fire.
Martinez, Rodriguez, you flank left. Baker, Chen, you're with me going right.
As they prepared to move, Jake heard something that made him pause. The gunfire from the compound had stopped, and the Taliban radio chatter had ceased.
Rodriguez, what's happening with our friends down there? Rodriguez listened to his equipment for a moment before responding.
Sir, I think the Taliban forces have been neutralized.
Jake felt a chill run down his spine.
If the Taliban forces had been eliminated that quickly, then the sniper they were facing was far more skilled than he had initially estimated.
Change of plans. We're dealing with a professional. This is not going to be a simple elimination. Captain Chen moved closer to Jake.
Lieutenant Commander, there's something else you need to know about this sniper.
What?
Based on our intelligence, we believe it's someone with extensive knowledge of Navy SEAL tactics and procedures.
Possibly a former operator.
The words hit Jake like a physical blow. The idea that they might be facing a former SEAL, someone who knew all their tricks and procedures, was almost unthinkable.
Any idea who?
Negative. But, whoever it is has been planning this for months. Every detail of this mission was designed to put your team in an impossible position. Jake looked up at the ridge where the sniper was positioned. Somewhere up there was someone who knew exactly how SEALs operated, who understood their strengths and weaknesses, and who had been waiting for the perfect opportunity to eliminate his entire team.
All right, people. We're going to do something that sniper won't expect.
We're going to get close enough to talk.
Jake studied the ridgeline through his binoculars one more time before making his decision.
The silence from the sniper position was more unnerving than gunfire would have been. Professional operators knew when to shoot and when to wait, and this one was clearly waiting for something. Rodriguez, try scanning all military frequencies.
Maybe we can pick up something from whoever's up there.
Rodriguez adjusted his equipment, cycling through various channels. After several minutes, he shook his head.
Nothing, sir. Either they're maintaining radio silence or they're using encryption we can't break. Jake considered their options.
A direct assault up the ridge would be suicide against a skilled sniper with elevated position and clear fields of fire.
But staying in their current location wasn't viable either, especially with Taliban reinforcements potentially on the way.
Captain Chen, you mentioned General Hammond has assets in the area.
How do we contact them? Chen pulled out a small device that looked like a standard GPS unit. This has a secure satellite uplink.
But I need to be in an open area with clear sky to establish connection.
Jake looked around their position.
They were tucked behind a cluster of boulders that provided excellent cover from the ridge, but would block any satellite signal.
How long do you need? 2 minutes for connection, maybe 3 more for authentication and message transfer.
5 minutes in the open was an eternity when facing a skilled sniper. But, without outside help, their chances of survival were diminishing rapidly.
Williams, do we have any smoke grenades left? Williams checked his gear. 2 canisters, sir. That'll have to do. Here's the plan. Williams and Thompson will lay down covering fire on the ridge. Martinez and Rodriguez will pop smoke and create a diversion to the east.
Captain Chen and I will move to that open area 50 meters north and establish satellite contact.
Chief Williams studied the terrain.
Sir, 50 meters might as well be 50 miles if that sniper has thermal optics.
That's why we're going to give him something else to think about. Baker, how much C4 do we have left? Baker inventoried his demolitions kit. Enough for one serious bang, sir. Good.
You're going to place charges on that abandoned vehicle down there.
When we move for the satellite contact, you detonate.
The explosion should mask our heat signature and provide visual cover. It was a risky plan with multiple moving parts, but Jake couldn't see any better alternatives. They needed outside help, and this was their only chance to get it.
Everyone understand their roles? We execute in 60 seconds. Jake turned to Captain Chen. You ready for this?
As ready as anyone can be for running across open ground with a sniper watching.
Jake appreciated her calm demeanor.
Army intelligence officers weren't usually known for their combat composure, but Chen seemed completely unfazed by their situation.
30 seconds.
Williams, Thompson, start your covering fire on my mark. The sound of rifle fire echoed across the valley as Williams and Thompson began shooting at the ridge. Jake couldn't see if they were hitting anything, but the purpose was to force the sniper to keep his head down.
Martinez, Rodriguez, smoke. 2 grenades arced through the air toward the eastern approach to their position. Within seconds, thick white smoke began billowing across the landscape. Baker, you're up.
The explosion from the abandoned vehicle lit up the valley like daylight for a brief moment. Jake grabbed Captain Chen's arm and they sprinted toward the open area where she could establish satellite contact. 50 meters had never felt so far. Jake could almost feel crosshairs tracking their movement as they ran across the rocky ground. Every step expected to be his last, every breath potentially his final one. They reached the designated spot and Chen immediately activated her communication device. Jake positioned himself to provide cover, scanning the ridgeline for any sign of the sniper.
How long? Jake asked, trying to keep his voice calm despite their exposed position. Acquiring signal now. 30 more seconds.
Jake could see muzzle flashes from Williams and Thompson's position as they continued their covering fire. The smoke from Martinez and Rodriguez was starting to dissipate, and soon their concealment would be gone.
Connection established. Sending authentication codes.
A sharp crack echoed across the valley, and Jake heard the distinctive whistle of a high-velocity round passing close by. The sniper had found them.
How much longer? 10 seconds for message upload. Another shot, this one close enough that Jake could feel the pressure wave. This sniper was good, adjusting for wind and distance with deadly precision. Upload complete. We can move. Jake grabbed Chen's arm and they sprinted back toward cover.
Behind them, he could hear the impact of rifle rounds on the rocky ground where they had just been standing. They dove behind the boulder cluster as another round shattered rock just inches from Jake's head. His ears were ringing from the near miss, but they were alive and Chen had successfully contacted her people.
Rodriguez, Williams, cease fire and fall back to this position.
One by one, his team members bounded back to their cover position.
Martinez arrived with a grim expression on his face. Sir, I got a good look at that sniper position through my scope. Whoever's up there is using military-grade equipment. High-end rifle, advanced optics, the works. Jake wasn't surprised, but the confirmation was unsettling. This wasn't some insurgent with an old hunting rifle. They were facing a professional with top-tier equipment. Captain Chen, how long before your people respond? Chen checked her device. General Hammond confirmed receipt of our message. She's dispatching assets to our location, but it'll be at least 30 minutes before they arrive. 30 minutes was a lifetime in their current situation. The sniper knew their position and had them pinned down. Any attempt to move would result in casualties. Rodriguez, try monitoring Taliban frequencies again. If there are more insurgent forces heading this way, we need to know. Rodriguez adjusted his equipment and listened carefully. After a few minutes, he looked up with concern. Sir, I'm picking up chatter about reinforcements coming from the south. Sounds like a large force, maybe 20 or 30 fighters. Jake calculated timing and distances in his head. If Taliban forces were approaching from the south while they were pinned down by the sniper from the north, they would be caught in a crossfire with no escape route. Time estimate on Taliban arrival? Based on radio chatter, maybe 15 minutes. Jake looked at his men. They were all veterans with multiple deployments, but this situation was testing even their considerable experience. Pinned down by a skilled sniper with enemy reinforcements approaching was every operator's nightmare. All right, we're going to have to fight our way out. Williams, how much ammunition do we have? Williams did a quick inventory. Enough for a serious firefight, but not enough for an extended engagement. It'll have to do. Here's what we're going to do. When those Taliban forces arrive, they're going to engage with the sniper just like the last group did. We're going to use that distraction to advance up the ridge. Chief Williams looked skeptical. Sir, that sniper eliminated the last Taliban force pretty efficiently. What makes you think this will be different? Because this time we're going to be moving at the same time. The sniper can't engage multiple targets simultaneously without exposing position. It was still a risky plan, but Jake couldn't see any better alternatives. They needed to neutralize the sniper before General Hammond's assets arrived, or the relief force might walk into the same trap. Thompson, Baker, you're going to provide overwatch from this position. Everyone else, we're going up that ridge. Jake studied the terrain one more time. The approach to the sniper position would require crossing about 300 meters of partially open ground. There were some boulders and small depressions that could provide limited cover, but it would still be extremely dangerous. Captain Chen, you should stay here with Thompson and Baker. Chen shook her head. Lieutenant Commander, I have information about this operation that your team needs. If we're going to end this, you're going to need everything I know. Jake considered her words. Army intelligence officers often had pieces of the puzzle that field operators lacked. If Chen had additional information about who was behind this mission, it might be crucial. All right, but you stay close and follow my lead exactly. The sound of approaching vehicles could be heard in the distance. The Taliban reinforcements were almost in position. Everyone ready? Remember, we move fast and we move smart. This sniper knows SEAL tactics, so we're going to do something unexpected. Rodriguez monitored his radio equipment. Taliban forces are in position. Sounds like they're preparing to assault the compound area. Jake waited for the sound of gunfire to begin before giving the signal to move. When the Taliban forces opened fire on the ridge position, he waved his team forward. They moved in a modified formation that Jake hoped the sniper wouldn't recognize immediately. Instead of standard bounding overwatch, they advanced in a loose line with irregular intervals. It was riskier for coordination, but harder for a single shooter to track multiple targets. The first 100 meters went smoothly. The sniper was engaged with the Taliban forces and couldn't divide attention between multiple threats. Jake's team made good progress using available cover. At the 200-meter mark, things changed. A shot cracked overhead, and Jake realized the sniper was now aware of their approach. Spread out. Don't give him an easy target. They continued advancing, but now each movement had to be carefully timed. The sniper was skilled enough to engage multiple targets, but couldn't be everywhere at once. Jake dove behind a boulder as another shot shattered rock where he had been standing. The sniper was adjusting quickly to their advance. Martinez, can you see the position? Martinez studied the ridge through his scope. I can see muzzle flashes, but I can't get a clear shot. Too much cover up there. Jake made a decision that went against everything in the SEAL tactical manual. Instead of continuing the careful advance, he was going to rush the position. Everyone listen up. We're going to assault that position directly. All at once, maximum aggression. Chief Williams looked at Jake with surprise. Sir, that's suicide against a position sniper. Not if we do it right. That sniper is expecting us to be careful, to use proper tactics. We're going to do exactly the opposite. Jake explained his reasoning quickly. The sniper was positioned to engage targets approaching carefully using standard small unit tactics. A wild, aggressive assault would force quick target selection and might create enough confusion to allow them to close distance. On my signal, we all advance directly toward that position. No covering fire, no bounding overwatch. Everyone just runs straight at the target. It was the kind of plan that would either work brilliantly or result in total disaster. Jake was betting on the element of surprise and the sniper's expectation that SEALs would never do something so tactically unsound. Rodriguez, what's the status on those Taliban forces? Still engaged, sir. Sounds like the sniper is keeping them busy. Perfect. Captain Chen, you stay 10 meters behind us. If this goes wrong, you get to cover and wait for General Hammond's people. Jake looked at each member of his team. These men had followed him through impossible situations before, trusting his judgment even when it seemed crazy. Gentlemen, sometimes the best tactic is to throw the tactical manual out the window. Ready? Each man nodded, though Jake could see the concern in their eyes. This was either going to be the shortest assault in SEAL history or the most successful. Go! 6 Navy SEALs and 1 Army intelligence officer charged directly up the ridge toward a position sniper, abandoning every principle of small unit tactics they had ever learned. It was madness, but it was calculated madness. The first shot came when they were 50 meters from the position. Jake heard it pass overhead and realized the sniper had been forced to make a hasty shot due to multiple targets approaching rapidly. Keep moving. More shots, but they were less accurate now. The sniper was being forced to engage multiple targets without time to properly aim and adjust. At 30 meters, Jake could see the sniper position clearly. It was a well-constructed hide with excellent cover and clear fields of fire. But it was designed for long-range engagement, not close-quarters combat. Williams, grenades. 2 fragmentation grenades arced toward the sniper position. Jake didn't expect them to cause casualties, but they would force the sniper to take cover and disrupt any planned shots. The explosions echoed across the ridge as Jake's team closed the final 20 meters to the sniper position. Jake expected to find a wounded or dead enemy operator when they reached the hide. Instead, he found something that made him question everything he thought he knew about this mission. The sniper position was empty. No rifle, no equipment, no body. Just scattered brass casings and signs that someone had been there recently. Clear left. Clear right. Position is empty, sir. Jake stared at the abandoned hide in disbelief. The sniper had been firing from this position just minutes ago. There was no way they could have evacuated without being seen. Rodriguez, scan the area. Look for movement, heat signatures, anything. Rodriguez used his thermal imaging equipment to scan the surrounding terrain. Nothing, sir. No heat signatures, no movement. Jake examined the sniper position more carefully. The hide was professionally constructed with excellent camouflage and clear shooting lanes. Brass casings indicated recent firing, but the weapon and shooter were gone. Captain Chen, does Army intelligence have any information about how this sniper might have escaped? Chen studied the position with obvious confusion. This doesn't match any of our intelligence. A sniper doesn't just disappear from a prepared position. Jake was beginning to realize that nothing about this mission matched the intelligence they had received. First, the compound had been empty except for Captain Chen, now the sniper position was abandoned. Sir, Martinez called from the edge of the hide, you need to see this. Jake moved to Martinez's position and looked where he was pointing. Cut into the rock face behind the sniper position was a narrow crevice, just wide enough for a person to squeeze through. Escape route, Jake said grimly. Professional sniper always has an exit strategy. Jake examined the crevice more carefully. It appeared to lead down the backside of the ridge, away from their approach route. The sniper had planned for exactly this scenario. Williams, Thompson, secure this position. Rodriguez, try to establish communication with someone in our chain of command besides control. Jake was determined to get answers about what was really happening. Too many things about this mission didn't add up, and his team was still in danger. Sir, Rodriguez called out after several minutes of working on his equipment, I managed to break out of the control network. I'm reaching someone at CENTCOM. Finally, Jake thought. Maybe now they could get some real answers about what they had walked into. This is Lieutenant Commander Morrison, SEAL Team 7. We have a compromised mission and need immediate assistance. Jake waited for a response, hoping that legitimate command authority would be able to explain what was happening and provide proper extraction for his team. The voice that came through Rodriguez's radio was crisp and professional, but what it said made Jake's blood run cold. Lieutenant Commander Morrison, this is Colonel Hayes, CENTCOM Operations. Your team was reported missing in action 12 hours ago. We have no record of your current mission. Jake felt the ground shift beneath his feet. Missing in action meant that somewhere in the chain of command, his team had been written off as lost or killed. Colonel, we were deployed on a direct action mission based on intelligence about a high-value target. We received orders through normal channels. Negative, Commander. SEAL Team 7 is currently listed as on administrative leave at Coronado. Your team was never deployed to Afghanistan. Jake looked at his men, seeing his own confusion and growing anger reflected in their faces. Someone had used their identities and call signs to deploy them on an unauthorized mission. Sir, we are definitely in Afghanistan. We are definitely under fire. And we definitely received deployment orders through what we believed were legitimate channels. There was a pause before Colonel Hayes responded. Commander, I'm going to patch you through to Admiral Richardson at Special Operations Command. Stand by. Jake used the wait time to process what he had just learned. If CENTCOM had no record of their mission, then someone had created an elaborate deception to deploy his team. The question was why. Morrison, this is Admiral Richardson. Son, you and your team are in serious danger. Someone has been using SEAL identities to run unauthorized operations for the past 6 months. Admiral, what kind of unauthorized operations? Intelligence gathering, weapons testing, elimination of specific targets. We've been investigating, but whoever is behind this has access to legitimate codes and protocols. Jake felt pieces of the puzzle starting to come together. Admiral, we encountered an Army intelligence officer here who claims this mission was designed to eliminate our team. That would be Captain Chen. She's one of our assets working on this investigation. General Hammond briefed us that she might make contact with you. Jake looked at Captain Chen with new understanding. She wasn't just an Army intelligence officer who happened to be in the wrong place. She was there specifically to help his team. Admiral, we need immediate extraction. We've been engaged by a hostile sniper who seems to have detailed knowledge of SEAL tactics. Negative on immediate extraction, Commander. We need you to complete Captain Chen's mission. This may be our only chance to identify who's behind these unauthorized operations. Jake didn't like the sound of that. Admirals didn't usually ask SEAL teams to continue compromised missions unless something extremely important was at stake. What's Captain Chen's mission, sir? The sniper you've been engaged with is not the real target. That person is working for whoever has been running these unauthorized missions. Captain Chen has technology that can track their communications back to the source. Jake looked at Captain Chen, who nodded and patted a small device attached to her gear. Admiral, with respect, my team has been used as bait in an unauthorized operation. My priority is getting my men home safely. Commander, I understand your position. But if we don't stop this now, more SEAL teams are going to walk into the same trap. We need to find out who has access to our codes and protocols. Jake weighed his options. Continue a dangerous mission to protect other teams, or extract immediately and let the investigation continue without them. What do you need us to do? Captain Chen will explain the technical details. But, essentially, you need to force that sniper to communicate with their handlers. When they do, Chen's equipment will trace the signal. Jake turned to Captain Chen. Explain.
Chen activated the device she had been carrying.
This is a signal intelligence collection system.
When that sniper reports your status to whoever's running this operation, we'll be able to trace the communication back to its source.
How do we force them to communicate? We make them think the mission is successful. If they believe your team has been eliminated, they'll report completion to their handlers. Jake understood the plan, but didn't like its implications. You want us to fake our own deaths? Temporarily.
We'll stage a scene that looks like your team was killed by Taliban forces.
When the sniper reports mission completion, we trace the signal. It was risky and complicated, but Jake could see the logic.
If they could identify who was behind the unauthorized operations, it would prevent other teams from walking into similar traps.
Rodriguez, what's the status on those Taliban forces?
Rodriguez monitored his equipment. They've withdrawn from the compound area.
Looks like they took casualties and decided to retreat. Perfect. We can use that. Captain Chen, how long do you need to set up your equipment? 5 minutes to get everything calibrated.
But I need to be close to the sniper's last known position when they make the communication.
Jake studied the terrain.
The sniper had escaped through the crevice in the rock face, but probably hadn't gone far.
Professional snipers like to maintain observation of their target area to confirm mission success.
Williams, Baker, you're going to help Captain Chen set up her equipment. Rodriguez, Martinez, Thompson, we're going to create a convincing death scene.
Jake outlined his plan quickly.
They would use explosive charges to create the appearance of a Taliban ambush that had eliminated his team.
Blood packs from their medical kits would add to the realism. Chief, how much C4 do we have left? Williams inventoried his remaining explosives.
Enough for a good show, sir. Set charges to simulate RPG impacts and small arms fire. Make it look like we got caught in the open and overwhelmed.
Jake turned to Captain Chen. How will you know when the sniper is communicating?
This equipment monitors all radio frequencies and satellite uplinks. When they transmit, I'll see it and trace it back to the source. The plan was coming together, but Jake was still concerned about one major factor.
What if the sniper decides to confirm our deaths visually?
If they see us moving around after the fake ambush, the deception fails.
Captain Chen pointed to her device.
That's why I need to be in position before you stage the scene.
Once the sniper believes you're dead, they'll likely move to an observation position to confirm before reporting. Jake nodded, understanding the timing required.
Everything had to happen in sequence, or the entire operation would fail.
All right, people.
This is probably the strangest mission any of us has ever run, but it might save other SEAL teams from the same trap.
Everyone clear on their roles?
His team nodded, though Jake could see they were still processing the revelation that their entire deployment had been based on deception.
Williams, get those charges placed.
Rodriguez, monitor all frequencies for any indication that we're being observed.
Martinez, Thompson, help me stage our death scene.
Jake looked around the sniper position one more time. Somewhere out there was a shooter who thought they had successfully eliminated a Navy SEAL team. Soon, they would learn just how wrong they were.
Captain Chen, how close do you need to be to that escape route? Chen examined the crevice in the rock face.
Within 50 meters should be sufficient. The equipment is sensitive enough to pick up most communication methods from that distance.
Jake studied the terrain around the escape route.
There were several positions that would provide both cover and clear sight lines to the crevice.
Take Williams with you.
If this goes wrong, you'll need someone with combat experience. Chen and Williams moved toward the escape route while Jake's remaining team members prepared their deception. Rodriguez scattered equipment to make it look like they had been caught by surprise.
Martinez placed blood packs in strategic locations.
Thompson, you're going to be our only casualty that moved after the ambush. Position yourself like you were trying to reach cover but didn't make it. Jake coordinated the final details of their staged death scene. It had to be convincing enough to fool a professional sniper, but also had to allow his team to remain hidden and ready to move if the situation deteriorated.
Rodriguez, time check on Captain Chen's setup?
She reports ready in 60 seconds, sir.
Jake looked at his remaining men.
If this plan worked, they would finally have answers about who had been using SEAL teams for unauthorized missions. If it failed, they might not survive the next hour. Remember, once we trigger this deception, we have to stay committed until Captain Chen completes her trace.
No matter what happens, we can't break cover.
Jake positioned himself where he could observe the area around the escape route without being seen. If the sniper moved to confirm their deaths, he wanted to be ready. Captain Chen reports equipment is active and ready, Rodriguez whispered through his comm. Execute the deception
now.
Williams detonated the charges they had placed around their position. The explosions echoed across the valley, simulating the kind of devastating attack that could eliminate an entire SEAL team. Jake and his men dropped into their predetermined positions and remained motionless. From a distance, it would look like the aftermath of a successful Taliban ambush. Now they waited to see if their deception would work.
10 minutes passed in complete silence.
Jake could feel sweat running down his back despite the mountain air, but he remained perfectly still. Movement near the escape route, Williams whispered through the comm from his position with Captain Chen. Jake strained to see any sign of the sniper, but the distance and terrain made visual confirmation impossible. I've got signal activity, Captain Chen's voice came through Rodriguez's equipment.
Someone is transmitting on an encrypted frequency.
Jake felt a surge of excitement. Their plan was working. The sniper was reporting mission completion to whoever had sent them.
Can you trace it?
Working on it. The encryption is military grade, but my equipment should be able to break through.
Jake remained in position, knowing that moving too soon could compromise the entire operation.
Professional snipers were trained to confirm kills before reporting, and this one might still be watching their position. I've got a preliminary trace, Captain Chen reported. The signal is being routed through multiple relays, but it's definitely going to a location in the continental United States. The revelation that the source of the unauthorized operations was inside the United States made Jake's blood run cold.
This wasn't foreign intelligence using American assets, this was domestic. Can you narrow down the location?
Still working on it. The routing is sophisticated, designed to hide the final destination. Jake waited, barely breathing, as Captain Chen worked to trace the communication. Every second that passed increased the chance that the sniper would move closer to verify their deaths. Got it, Captain Chen's voice carried a note of excitement and disbelief.
The signal terminates at a facility in Virginia.
Cross-referencing with military databases, it's coming from inside the Pentagon. Jake felt like he had been hit by a truck. Someone inside the Pentagon had been using SEAL teams for unauthorized operations, and had tried to eliminate his team when they got too close to the truth.
Captain Chen, are you certain about that location?
Positive. The communication is going directly to a facility at the Pentagon.
I can narrow it down further with a few more minutes. Jake made a decision that would have far-reaching consequences.
Instead of waiting for Captain Chen to complete her trace, he was going to end this confrontation immediately. Rodriguez, contact Admiral Richardson directly. Tell him we have preliminary confirmation that the source is inside the Pentagon.
Copy that, sir.
Jake carefully moved to where he could observe the escape route. If the sniper was still in the area, he was going to make contact and demand answers.
Movement confirmed at the escape route, Williams reported.
Single individual, armed, moving toward your staged position. Jake could see a figure moving carefully through the rocks, approaching the area where his team appeared to have been killed. Even at a distance, he could tell this was a professional operator by the way they moved.
Captain Chen, how much more time do you need? 2 minutes to get specific building and office location.
Jake watched as the figure moved closer to their staged death scene.
When they were about 100 meters away, Jake made his move. This is Lieutenant Commander Morrison, United States Navy.
Drop your weapon and identify yourself. The figure froze, clearly not expecting to hear Jake's voice. For a moment, nobody moved or spoke. Then, the sniper called back in a voice that made Jake's world shift completely.
Jake Morrison, you always were too stubborn to die easy.
Jake recognized the voice immediately, even though he hadn't heard it in over 3 years. It belonged to someone he had served with, someone he had trusted, someone who had been reported killed in action in Syria.
Sarah? Sarah Collins?
The figure straightened and began walking toward Jake's position, weapon lowered but still ready. Hello, Jake.
We need to talk.
Jake stared at the approaching figure with a mixture of disbelief, anger, and relief. Chief Petty Officer Sarah Collins had been his closest friend and most trusted operator before her reported death 3 years ago. Seeing her alive should have been the best moment of his career, but the circumstances made it feel like a nightmare.
Sarah, you were killed in Syria. I was at your memorial service.
Sarah stopped about 20 meters away, her weapon still in a ready position but not directly threatening.
The memorial service was real, Jake. Chief Petty Officer Sarah Collins did die in Syria. But I survived.
Jake's mind raced as he tried to process what she was telling him.
If you survived, why didn't you come back? Why let everyone think you were dead?
Because I discovered something that would have gotten me killed for real if I had returned through normal channels.
Sarah gestured around the Afghan mountainside. This unauthorized operation you've been investigating? It's been going on for 5 years, not 6 months.
And it goes all the way to the top of Naval Special Operations Command. Jake felt the ground shift beneath his feet again. If Sarah was telling the truth, then the corruption in the command structure was far worse than anyone suspected. Sarah, I need you to put down your weapon and explain everything.
My team thinks you're hostile.
Sarah slowly placed her rifle on the ground and raised her hands slightly.
Jake, I've been trying to expose this operation for 3 years.
But everyone I trusted either couldn't help or became a target themselves.
So you decided to start killing SEAL teams? Sarah's face showed genuine hurt at the accusation.
Jake, I've never killed a single American operator. Every mission I've run has been designed to expose the unauthorized operations without causing casualties. Jake studied Sarah's face, looking for any sign of deception. He had served with her for 2 years and knew her tells better than anyone. She appeared to be telling the truth.
Rodriguez, contact Captain Chen.
Tell her to continue the signal trace, but also start recording everything we're saying here.
Jake kept his weapon ready but not directly aimed at Sarah. Explain. From the beginning.
Sarah sat down on a nearby rock, keeping her hands visible. In Syria, my team was sent to eliminate what we thought was an ISIS commander. When we got there, we discovered the target was actually a Syrian intelligence officer who had been cooperating with American forces.
Jake remembered the mission briefing. Sarah's team had been sent on what was described as a high-priority elimination mission that would save American lives. The target was working with us? More than that.
He was providing intelligence that had prevented 3 attacks on American facilities. Someone wanted him dead specifically because he was helping us. Jake was beginning to understand the scope of what Sarah was describing. Someone in our command structure was using SEAL teams to eliminate assets that were helping American interests.
Exactly.
But when I tried to report it through normal channels, I was told that my concerns had been noted and I should focus on my assigned missions. Sarah stood and began pacing slowly, the stress of 3 years in hiding evident in her movements. 2 weeks later, my team was sent on another mission. This time the target was supposedly an arms dealer who was supplying weapons to insurgents.
When we arrived, we found an entire family, including children.
Jake felt sick to his stomach.
What did you do? I refused to complete the mission.
But the intelligence we had received made it clear that someone expected us to kill that family and report it as a successful strike against an arms dealer. Jake was starting to understand why Sarah had chosen to disappear rather than return through official channels. So you faked your death?
I had no choice.
The corruption was too deep, and anyone who questioned orders was being targeted for elimination. I've spent 3 years gathering evidence and trying to find someone in the command structure who wasn't compromised.
Jake heard Rodriguez's voice through his comm unit.
Sir, Captain Chen has completed her signal trace.
She's requesting immediate extraction with her data.
Jake relayed the message to Sarah. Captain Chen traced the communications back to the Pentagon.
Someone there has been running unauthorized operations. Sarah nodded grimly. Admiral Marcus Webb.
He's been using his position as Deputy Commander of Naval Special Operations to run illegal missions for the past 5 years.
The name hit Jake like a physical blow.
Admiral Webb had personally briefed his team on 3 separate missions over the past 2 years.
Sarah, that's a serious accusation. Admiral Webb is one of the most respected officers in Naval Special Operations. Jake, I have 3 years of evidence. Communications, mission orders, financial records. Webb has been selling SEAL capabilities to foreign governments and private contractors. Jake tried to process the magnitude of what Sarah was claiming. If Admiral Webb was corrupt, then dozens of missions over the past 5 years might have been illegal. Why didn't you take this to the FBI or CIA? Sarah laughed bitterly.
Because Webb has connections throughout the intelligence community. Anyone I approached either couldn't help or suddenly found themselves reassigned to remote locations. Jake was beginning to understand the isolation Sarah must have felt. Discovering corruption at the highest levels of command left very few people who could be trusted.
So what's your plan? You can't stay hidden forever.
My plan was to gather enough evidence that the corruption couldn't be covered up or ignored. But Webb realized someone was investigating him and started using elimination missions to remove potential witnesses.
Jake thought about the mission that had brought his team to Afghanistan. This mission was designed to eliminate us?
You and your team have worked 3 missions in the past year that could have exposed Webb's operation if you had looked too closely at the intelligence. He decided it was safer to eliminate you and blame it on enemy action. The revelation that someone in their own command structure had tried to kill his entire team filled Jake with rage. But he needed to stay focused on getting his men home safely.
Sarah, I need you to come in with us. We have people who can protect you while this gets sorted out. Sarah shook her head. Jake, Webb has assets everywhere.
The moment I surface through official channels, I'll be killed and it will look like an accident or enemy action. Jake understood her fear, but also knew they couldn't continue operating in the shadows indefinitely.
What do you need?
I need someone with access to Senator Patricia Hammond.
She chairs the Senate Intelligence Committee and isn't in Webb's pocket.
Jake realized why Captain Chen had been sent to make contact with his team. General Hammond, Captain Chen's commanding officer, was the senator's sister.
Sarah, I think we can make that happen.
Jake explained Captain Chen's connection to Senator Hammond and the investigation that Army intelligence had been conducting.
If we can get you and your evidence to Senator Hammond, can you make the case against Admiral Webb?
Sarah looked uncertain for the first time since their conversation had begun.
Jake, I've been hiding for 3 years because I didn't think anyone would believe me. A dead SEAL making accusations against a respected admiral? You won't be alone.
We have Captain Chen's signal intelligence, my team's testimony about this mission, and now your evidence.
That's enough to start a serious investigation.
Jake heard Williams' voice through his comm unit. Sir, Captain Chen reports movement to the south. Looks like vehicles approaching at high speed. Jake looked at Sarah with concern.
Taliban? Sarah checked her equipment quickly. Negative. Those will be Webb's cleanup crew.
He sent them to confirm that your team was eliminated and to remove any evidence. Jake realized they were running out of time. If Admiral Webb's people arrived before they could extract with Sarah's evidence, everyone involved in the investigation would be killed. Rodriguez, contact Admiral Richardson immediately. Tell him we need emergency extraction for 7 personnel and critical intelligence.
Sarah, how much evidence do you have with you? Sarah pointed to a pack she had left near the escape route. Everything. Communications, financial records, mission orders. 5 years of Admiral Webb's illegal operations.
Jake made a decision that would determine whether justice would be served or covered up forever.
Williams, Thompson, secure Sarah's equipment.
Rodriguez, Martinez, prepare for immediate extraction.
We're all leaving together. Sarah looked at Jake with genuine emotion for the first time. Jake, if we do this, there's no going back.
Webb will use every resource at his disposal to discredit us or eliminate us. Sarah, you've been fighting this alone for 3 years.
You're not alone anymore.
Jake contacted Captain Chen through Rodriguez's equipment.
Captain Chen, what's your extraction status? General Hammond has assets 5 minutes out.
Secure landing zone and prepare for immediate departure. Jake looked around the Afghan mountainside where his team had nearly been eliminated by their own command structure.
It was time to go home and seek justice. Sarah, what's your rank?
Sarah smiled for the first time since they had been reunited.
Well, officially I'm dead.
But, before I died, I was Chief Petty Officer Collins.
Unofficially, after 3 years of operating alone in hostile territory while gathering intelligence on enemy operations, I think I've earned a promotion. Jake understood what she was saying.
For 3 years, Sarah had been conducting the most important mission of her career without support, without backup, and without recognition.
Chief Collins, consider yourself reinstated. When we get home, I'm going to recommend you for the Navy Cross.
The sound of helicopters approaching could be heard in the distance. Soon they would be extracted from Afghanistan and the real mission would begin, exposing the corruption that had nearly gotten them all killed. "Jake," Sarah said quietly as they prepared for extraction, "there's something else you need to know."
What? Admiral Webb isn't working alone.
This conspiracy involves people at the highest levels of multiple branches of the military.
Exposing him is just the beginning.
Jake looked at his team: Rodriguez, Martinez, Thompson, Williams, and Baker, who had followed him through an impossible situation based on trust and loyalty. They had started the day thinking they were on a routine elimination mission. They were ending it having uncovered a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of military command.
Then, we'll take them all down. One at a time if necessary.
As the extraction helicopters touched down, Jake reflected on the events of the past 12 hours. They had been betrayed by their own command structure, nearly eliminated by a corrupted mission, and forced to fight for their lives against overwhelming odds. But they had also been reunited with a fallen comrade, uncovered evidence of systemic corruption, and potentially saved other SEAL teams from similar fates. Most importantly, they had proven that honor, loyalty, and courage could overcome any obstacle when warriors stood together.
"Time to go home and fight the real war," Jake said as they boarded the helicopter with Sarah's evidence.
Sarah Collins, the sniper who had been presumed dead for 3 years, was finally coming home. And Admiral Marcus Webb was about to discover that betraying the men and women of Naval Special Operations had consequences he never anticipated. The helicopter lifted off from the Afghan mountainside, carrying 7 American warriors and the evidence that would bring justice to those who had betrayed their trust. The real mission was just beginning.